Hey everyone, if you are here for the Stress is Making You Sick presentation, you're in the right place. We're just going to give it a little bit of time for people to trickle in, and then we'll get started shortly. All right, so as people start coming in, I'll talk a little bit about me. So I am the new doctor to Desert Wellness, Dr. Moreno. So let's go to the next slide. All right, so I'm a naturopathic doctor. I'm licensed in the state of Arizona, and really I came into medicine because I wanted to really help people heal. Initially, I thought, hey, I'm gonna, get my bachelor's in psychology because I want to better understand people, and that will make me a better doctor. And then I've learned, once I wanted to get into medical school, what medical school was like and what our medical system was like. And I realized we're really not addressing that mind-body aspect of health. So it was really discouraging. So then I just started working in mental health, and then somebody introduced me to naturopathic medicine, and it was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I went to school for, because I really want to help people heal from their core, from the root of their issues, rather than just putting band-aids on issues and then them getting worse and worse. So that's how I came into naturopathic medicine. It was kind of an accident that I found what it was. And when I did, I realized, like, I was raised with naturopathic medicine. In my culture, we used so many herbs growing up, but I just thought that's just what my grandma did, rather than thinking of it as medicine. And now I learned that all that was healing and it was medicine. So it was very exciting to actually see that I was raised around this medicine, but to me it was everyday life and just what we did versus considering it medicine. But how amazing is that it was just part of our lifestyle. So in that, I have a passion for mental health, hormone balancing, and chronic gut and autoimmune issues. And really my soft spot is women, because I'm a mom myself. I've been burnt out myself. I've been in the struggle bus or on the rat race of just getting through life. And it's a hard place to be in. And I feel for so many burnt out moms or just busy women in the workforce. And I want to let you guys know it can be better. Like, you can have resiliency to get through your everyday life. We just need to learn to manage our everyday stress that is impacting our health. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. So the topic of our webinar is stress making you sick? So what is going on in your life that can potentially be causing either physical symptoms or manifesting as mental, emotional symptoms? Okay. So why are we here today? Because we want to understand stress. We want to understand that there's different types of stress, because stress is not actually a bad thing. Our body mounts a stress response for a reason. So we're going to learn about that. We're going to learn what is the stress hormone. So that is cortisol. And we're going to learn how chronic stress impacts your health. So you can see really how big of, how do we want to say this? Like, what the scope is of what stress can be impacting. And then what things you can use now to help manage your stress and get through your everyday life. Okay, so what is stress? So our body mounts this natural biological process that helps us respond to difficult situations, specifically when we're in danger. So hence the picture. The zebras are in danger because they're the main pride on food for the lions, right? That is what stress does for us. It helps us survive such situations. You're going to see the zebra is going to run away from the lion. If the zebra is able to get away from the lion, they actually have a release of this stress response so that they can move on with their life and not be chronically sick. Let me tell you about that. So whenever you are in danger, your body activates what's called the fight or flight response. So that means you're either going to fight your aggressor or you're going to run from your aggressor, but either of those, your body's goal is to keep you safe. But what happens when we live in that state? What happens when we live in a state where our brain constantly thinks that we're in danger and we're being attacked. That robs us from being able to engage the parasympathetic response of our nervous system, which is the rest and digest, which allows us to carry our everyday bodily processes. Because when you're in that fight or flight response, your body isn't going to focus on your long-term needs. It's going to focus on what you need in that moment to survive. So going back to the zebra running away from the lion. So in nature, it's been observed that, let's say the zebra is able to outrun the lion, comes to a place like finds a cave or a bush or whatever it is that where it feels safe. It outran the lion. It's a safety. The threat is gone. So then you see these animals like start shuddering. They start shaking uncontrollably for a couple minutes, and then they get up and they go on their life like nothing happened. That animal is shaking off that stress response so that they don't stay in that state and they can go on with their life and engage that parasympathetic rest and digest state. This is something that we are missing in our lives. We don't shake it off. We live chronically in that fight or flight. So let's take a look how that really impacts our health. So there's different types of stress. There's physiological stress, like if you're in pain or something causes you pain, that's physiological stress. If you're over-exercising, even any type of exercise, really, it's a type of stress. And then there's cold and heat exposure can cause stress. So people that do cold plunges, people that exercise daily, that's a good form of stress. It makes your body resilient, right? But if you're over-exercising, or if you're like exposed to very cold winters for long term or whatever it is, that's too much of a stress. And then you have the adverse effect. Rather than it being beneficial and building resiliency, it's actually causing damage. So we can see that our body has this biological response to keep us safe, and it's beneficial. However, when it is activated for too long, then it becomes a problem. Then you have mental emotional stress. And this is really where stress comes for a lot of us. And it starts all the way back to childhood. So any type of childhood trauma really predisposes you to long-term health disorders, or it predisposes you to have more of a heightened response in your nervous system to stress. There's a really good video that describes what the ACE study is, and it's basically, it's a study that showed that children that had these adverse childhood events, what it predisposed them to long-term, like what health concerns. It's a wonderful study. I do suggest everyone watches it. I've watched it several times, and I did provide that link for you. So now this goes into our body keeps the score. Also a great book. So the stress gets trapped in our body, starts even from childhood, and then it starts to break down our cells. It starts to damage us from the molecular level. So you're starting off at a damaged baseline. You're building on that. So imagine just chronically being in a state of stress. It is difficult to maintain optimal health because you are basically walking on cracks. So we have to learn to manage our everyday stress. So like the zebra running from the lion, we can shake it off. We can't let it expel from our body and not have a long-term effect. The other one that we most commonly see is mental load stress, or aka your cognitive load. So a lot of the things that you have every day running through your mind, so not necessarily something physical, but you have all the things going on, especially if you're a mom, you have like kids' doctor's appointments, your doctor's appointments, picture day. That was one for me today. Picture day this morning. The kids' dentist appointment, kids' sporting events, what you have to do at work, deadlines, the house needs to be cleaned, laundry needs to be done. Like all these little tasks, they really weigh on your mind and then cause an internal stress response. So these stress responses can be internal or can be external. And internal examples are like, what are our beliefs? What do we believe about ourselves? Do we have a fear of failure? Changes in our career, things that are out of our control, like getting let go, or a relationship ending that we weren't expecting, having a death in the family, or coming into parenthood, changes of career. Like there's so many things in our everyday life that can cause stress, and we just can't stop living, right? So we have to learn ways, again, to move the stress through our body, so it's not staying within and causing these chronic stress issues. So I put this picture here because it looks really complex, right? And you're like, what am I looking at? So I put this picture here just to show you all the processes that happen when that stress response is activated. So imagine that our body has to do this day in, day out, 24/7 when we don't mitigate our stress. That's a lot to do. Okay, so what is this stress hormone? So stress hormone is released from your adrenal glands as well as adrenaline in response to stress. So we go back to this picture. We have your brain. Your brain realizes there's a stressor. Then it tells another part of your brain that sends a message to your adrenal glands. So your adrenals are these little hats that sit on top of your kidneys, and they're responsible for hormones production. So then it tells your adrenals, hey, there's stress. Let's put out cortisol. Let's put adrenaline because we need to survive this stressor. So then in response, cortisol will increase your blood sugar because it thinks you need immediate energy. Like sugar is immediate use energy. So it dumps sugar into the bloodstream, either from breaking it down from your liver stores or breaking down your muscle. Now you have a lot of circulating blood sugar. Then it decreases digestive function because if you are under a threat, the last thing your body needs is to worry about digestion. The last thing your body needs is to worry about reproduction. Then it affects your hormones. And the last thing your body needs is to worry about your immune system. All it's worrying about in that moment is having enough energy, having enough alertness to run away from prey or from danger. Adrenaline will increase your heart rate, increase your blood pressure, and it increases alertness for a short time so that you are hyper-focused and you can get yourself into safety. What happens again when this is activated long-term? Whenever you're stressed, do you feel your heart rate increase, or you feel like maybe a little bit of a headache or maybe a little bit of blurry vision? Because your blood pressure is up. We need blood rushing quickly so you can run, so you can think quick. We don't need this happening all day, every day. Okay, so what happens when it is activated all day, every day? When you are stuck in that survival mode? As we can see, it affects your mental health. It can cause depression, anxiety, irritability, sensory overload. So sounds start bothering you. For example, one of my big things that I know I'm like in survival mode and in stressed mode is the fan on the stove will drive me bananas. It's not even a loud sound, right? But it's that sensory overload. Really bright fluorescent lights start to be bothersome. Or you can't sleep with the tiniest little light on in the room. Or just like even the flicker of your fire alarm is too much. That is sensory overload. Your little adrenal glands can't take it anymore. There's too much stress going on. They can't regulate. It affects your hormones. So you get sexual dysfunction, decreased libido, or for men, like erectile dysfunction. And then it affects your metabolic health because, like I said, you get a dump of blood sugar so that you have energy. But if you're getting increased blood sugar all day, it's going to lead to your pancreas working overtime to try to get that sugar into your cells for energy. And then you end up with insulin resistance. And insulin resistance is what leads to diabetes type 2. Then you end up with chronic high blood pressure because you're living on adrenaline. When you are in a chronic state of stress, you end up accumulating weight, especially in the midsection. Like the belly weight is usually stress weight. And then, like I said, your body doesn't have time to worry about digestion. So then you end up with GI issues. Either you don't absorb food very well, it feels like when you eat, it feels like food just sits like a rock in your stomach. You might experience constipation, you might experience diarrhea, constant stomach aches, you might not have an appetite at all, or you might feel overly hungry all the time. It really varies from person to person. You might notice that you're getting sick all the time because your body's focused on other things rather than your immune system regulating. So you notice that whatever your kids bring home, you're catching it. Whatever your coworker has at the office, you got it. At night, you might notice it's getting difficult to fall asleep. You have monkey brain, so racing thoughts all the time. You're creating to-do lists in your mind. You're thinking about past events or future events or what could have gone different. So we call it monkey brain. Your mind just doesn't stop, so you don't rest. And when you fall asleep, it might not feel restful. In the morning, you might feel like, okay, I laid in bed for 7 hours and it feels like I didn't get a solid 1 hour of sleep. So you're waking up tired. You're starting your day at a deficit already, just sluggish and barely making it through your day. Basically feels like you're drowning. Like any little thing that gets added to your plate feels like the weight of the world because you just don't have any more resiliency for stress. That's the thing. That's what we call the big umbrella topic is you lose your stress resiliency. Means you lose your ability to cope with stress because your body is chronically in that state and it's not being flushed out. So over time, it gets to be too much. Your body is literally drowning in stress hormone. For women, I've noticed like a loss of sense of self. Like you look in the mirror and you're like, you don't even know who you are anymore because you're just waking up and trying to make it through the day. And like, it feels like you lost you. I've seen this often. You might develop joint pain. You might develop a lot of muscle tension, specifically like in your shoulders. You can even develop that pain in your back. Okay. So again, a very complicated picture that I wanted to point here so you know what cortisol is robbing from you. So here is what we call the steroid hormone pathway. So how all your hormones are made. All your hormones are made from cholesterol. That's why we need good cholesterol in your diet. And as you see, cortisol is here underlined in red. So when your body is constantly under stress, it's going to shunt all that cholesterol and all those mother hormones into making cholesterol. It's not going to use those cofactors to make your progesterone, to make your testosterone, to make your estradiol. So you end up with hormone imbalances. For women, this can look like an absence of your period or really heavy, painful periods. For men, it can look like erectile dysfunction. For both, it can look like just constant fatigue because your stress response is worn out and it's decreasing all your other hormones. So this is what we call like a hormone steal. When you are constantly under stress, it's eating away all of the cofactors to be utilized to make all your other sex hormones. So sometimes the hormone imbalance, it's not the end factors. It's not your estrogen, your testosterone that are the underlying problem. Is that you live under chronic stress and all your cofactors are being used for cortisol rather than to make your hormones. So sometimes in office, we work to help people get their end hormones better, so to get more testosterone, to get more estrogen, more progesterone. But then it's like sometimes they're like, well, I don't feel better yet. And it's like, well, you're still living under a lot of chronic stress, so you're eating at them. You're eating away at all your hormones. So sometimes we really got to step back and look at our lives and be like, what can I give up? Or what can I take off my plate? Or what things can I implement into my everyday life to allow my buckets to fill so they can overflow into the things I need, like your sex hormones. Okay, so this slide has a lot of text because I want you to realize what the impacts of chronic stress are. So when like I mentioned earlier, sometimes your low hormones, that's not the root cause. The root cause is stress. So the root cause the root cause of a lot of illnesses can actually be stress. Like so many women are diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome or hypothyroid or fibromyalgia. And the underlying cause of that is the chronic stress. Chronic insomnia, chronic sexual dysfunction, weight gain. Again, I said that midsection is where we most commonly see it. So imagine you start chasing down these symptoms. You start going to different specialists. You start getting all these different diagnoses. You start being prescribed medication for your muscle pains, for your depression, for your anxiety, for your insomnia. And next thing you know, you are taking a plethora of medications and you still have symptoms. You have all these diagnoses. You have all these medications when really the underlying issue was your stress. Other things like your hair health, the health of your skin, your nails. Like I mentioned, for women, it can cause a lot of menstrual irregularities, the unstable moods. Specifically for women, I've seen this, like they go either into their gynecologist or their primary care and they tell them, like, my mood's been off, maybe I'm a little more depressed, or I've seen them more irritable, and it's probably because their hormones are low, likely could be because their stress response is so high. So what are they offered? They're offered an antidepressant. And what the antidepressant, it's just a Band-Aid. It's going to make it so you just level out and you don't dip too low into that depression, but you also don't get to experience really highs in life anymore because antidepressants keep you at a baseline, which can be good for some people. But if that's not the underlying cause, again, you are chasing symptoms and getting expensive diagnoses. Autoimmune conditions. This, I've worked closely with women under chronic stress, especially women that have had a lot of childhood trauma that have autoimmune conditions. This is because earlier, as I mentioned, stress wreaks havoc on your immune system. It doesn't allow your immune system to function optimally. So then your immune system gets confused and starts attacking your own body. And this can manifest as Hashimoto's thyroiditis, as rheumatoid arthritis, as lupus, just to name the most common ones. And again, what's the underlying issue? It's if we address the stress, we move the traumas, we move the everyday stressors, we can put a lot of these autoimmune disorders into remission with all the other proper support. Because we can put a lot of this support in place, but if we don't address the level of stress, then you're going to continue to just not utilize our tools properly, or they're just not going to work because you are trying to put out a fire that's gotten so big that we need to work on what is feeding the fire rather than throwing all these things at it that are just going to go up in flames too. We talked about impaired digestion. So people end up diagnosed with IBS or SIBO or malnutrition, or they can even be diagnosed with Crohn's or ulcerative colitis. And then with all this malnutrition, it can lead to osteoporosis, so weak and brittle bones, specifically in women. All right, I think we have a question. Okay, all right. So Jess, we're talking about fibromyalgia, and yes, fibromyalgia is a very multifactorial illness. But one of the factors that plays into the development of fibromyalgia a lot of the time is just the chronic stress. So we want to look at these diagnoses from all the different angles so that we can create like really well-rounded treatment plans so we can give you the most optimal chance of feeling your best. And then we talked about diabetes due to the chronic dysregulation of your blood sugar. So this is just a few examples of where stress can be intertwined into a lot of these diagnoses. And it might not be the one thing, but it could be the thing that's playing a role. And we have to make sure we're addressing issues from every standpoint. So again, you have the most optimal chance of health. Okay, so the highest price you will pay when you don't really manage your stress is with the quality of your life, because we just talked about all the diagnoses that can be attributed from chronic stress. All right, so we want to be aware of maladaptive coping skills for stress. So we've all been guilty of them. Like, I know that I am getting burnt out when I want to eat donuts from Whole Foods. They are my favorite. So I put a picture of donuts. We start to increase the use of alcohol or drugs. Medical marijuana has been used more commonly since now it is legalized in our state. So we're seeing an increased use of that, increased binge watching TV, scrolling on your phone aimlessly. Like, you're losing hours of your day just scrolling on your phone because your body's just trying to shut everything off. Over exercising can also be, because a lot of people will say, well, I just feel better when I exercise. So when they're under a lot of stress, they'll start to over exercise. And then that is another type of stress on your body. Or over caffeinating. We see this so often. You're having to have 2 cups of coffee in the morning, and then you're reaching for a afternoon cup of coffee as well. And then, like I said, you're reaching for your snacky foods. You're reaching for things that are sweet or salty. You're eating more chips. You're noticing you're shoveling down popcorn. These are signs that you can start to be aware of and be like, oh, maybe I'm under more stress than I think I am. Because a lot of us downplay our stress because it's become part of our everyday life and we just get through it, right? But there's little keys that we can implement, we can put into our everyday life to check in with ourselves and be like, oh, I'm on like episode 7 of this series. That should probably tell me something. So just check in with yourself. Like, what are you doing on a daily basis that can tell you, like, hey, maybe you're under more stress than you think you are, and we need a little self-care. So what things can you do now for some self-care? All right. So things like, don't skip meals. Skipping meals is actually a stressor on your body. It causes a physiological stress. Don't skip meals. Make sure you are giving your body nourishment. Hydrate. Really important. Don't over caffeinate and hydrate instead, because the more coffee you drink, the more dehydrated you become. Rule of thumb, for every cup of coffee, 2 cups of water. Practice deep breathing. This can be easy. This can be really quick, something you can incorporate on a day-to-day basis. If you're showing up to like a stressful meeting, you can do some deep breaths in your car before you go out into the meeting. Whenever you come home after a stressful work day, you can sit in your car and just take some deep breaths before you go into your house and take on the task of your household, because that can be really difficult, specifically if you have children or you have pets at home that you need to take care of. You want to make sure you're walking in having released the stress that you carried so you can start over. You can practice simply inhaling for 4 seconds, holding, exhaling for 4 seconds. Super simple. Or if you like guidance, you can use an app called I Breathe. Really cool app. I learned about this app through a health coach. And then there's meditation and prayer. There's lots of apps out there. My favorite is Insight Timer, but there's also Calm and Headspace. And there's another one on Apple I actually just learned yesterday called Breathe, and they're doing it's called Balance. And they're doing a free membership for a year for mental health awareness. So yeah, you can get a full free membership for a year, and that's called Balance. And it's really neat. It gets tailored to you and your stressors and your needs. Develop a bedtime routine. So bedtime sleep is when your body recoups. So we need to make sure we're prioritizing our sleep. You need your rest. Important to not get an influx of blue light from screens, from your phone, whenever you're going to bed. So ideal would be an hour before bed. That can be difficult, but you can start at least 30 minutes before bed. Instead, read a paper or listen to a meditation, read a book. Catching the sunrise and sunset has been shown in studies to really help your circadian rhythm. So it will help you get to sleep better. It will help you balance that cortisol response. And it doesn't have to be, you can just go out and do a 10-minute morning walk and a 10-minute evening walk. And at the same time, you're moving your body and you're catching some sun, which is really beneficial. Move your body at least 30 minutes a day. It doesn't need to be intense exercise as long as you're doing something. You want to have a dance party to like 3 of your favorite songs? Awesome. That's going to bring you some joy and get your body moving. You want to do a wind down yoga. You want to go for a walk. If you love intense exercise, that's okay too. But know that it doesn't have to be like, oh, you're hitting the gym. It can be simple things that you enjoy doing. It can be gardening. And a lot of people, like we talked about, maladaptively, they'll start reaching for alcohol at the end of the day to unwind. Well, there's really cool neurotropic drinks now. Hop water is one of them. And they're like fuzzy carbonated waters that are infused with herbs that are neurotropic, meaning they protect your brain and they help with that stress response, and adaptogenic herbs that again help with that stress response. It's really neat. So you can trade in your alcohol for hop water. And a lot of us now wear Apple Watches, or we wear Whoops, or a lot of these different Garmin watches that measure our heart rate variability. So measuring your heart rate variability is another way to check in and say, hey, how am I doing? Because if your heart rate variability is really low, it means you're not adjusting well. It means you're in survival mode. So that's another really good way to track and check in with yourself, maybe making it a note that like once a week I check in and see how this is doing. Okay. And then first and foremost, like just play, have fun. We've definitely gotten away from how beneficial play is. We have all these studies of how good it is for child development, but why not for us too as adults? It's super important. So laugh, play a board game, like I said, have a dance party, and like the zebra, shake it off. Dancing is a way to shake it off, or just scream at your pillow or punch the air. Just move the energy through your body. Whenever you start to feel like the anxious feeling or your heart rate is up, just shake it off. Move around, get that energy moving so it doesn't get stuck and then lead to chronic issues. And you know, my favorite, go on Instagram or your favorite social media app and look up happy pictures. So that's the only time I'll be like, it's fine to scroll on your phone for like 30 minutes if you're looking at cute little puppies. All right, so here's one for you. But in summary, I just want you to understand that not managing our stress can be the underlying issue that's causing cracks in our foundation, and it's allowing some of these chronic issues to develop. Like it's predisposing you to chronic infections that can then lead to other issues like chronic Epstein-Barr virus, or if you have cold sores often, like you're getting cold sores every couple months, that is showing us that your body is stressed and it's allowing that viral load to keep coming up. Whenever people get shingles, it's because they are stressed, and that weakens your immune system. So just know that managing stress is a way that you can heal, or you can patch a lot of those areas in your foundation and really give yourself a thriving chance of just feeling good and living well. So thank you for joining us. And if you have questions, please let us know. Give us a call. Our information is on there. But it's been a pleasure talking to you guys, and I hope to catch you guys again soon.